Hey, what's going on, folks? We are back at it. This is Daryl Dixon, I Am Set Apart podcast. This is part 2 of encouraging yourself in the Lord. I didn't think it did you guys justice to just try to cram 15 minutes of my thoughts into that little time frame. But we're going to get right into it, man. For those who don't know about the story of the Garden of Eden and what transpired in there, go to Genesis 3 and read it. But just think about it. These band of raiders, as I said before, David was taken in the worst of the worst. People who couldn't go back to families, they couldn't go back to towns, they were criminals, they were the bottom of the barrel, and he took them in and he led these people. He led them on exploits. He made sure they ate. He made sure that they had what they needed, and they go off on a mission. They come back. Their whole camp is raided. They want to kill them. They want to stone them. They immediately blame the leader, like, this is your fault this happened. Now think of it. How much sense would it make for them to kill the leader? I mean, up until this point, they had no leader. They had no purpose. Now they're following this man, and because they're in their feelings, and very much so, they had every right to be. I mean, heck, somebody basically kidnapped their women and child and was holding them ransom. And so they wanted to kill David because, like, look, bro, if you would have had somebody guarding the post while we was gone, this would have never happened. And that's very much so like the people today, like ourselves. When things go wrong in our life, we want to point the finger and blame. We do not want to take responsibility. But you know what? For those who understand leadership, who understand what being a servant leader is, we know that comes with the territory. And although we know that, we are still human beings. We still have feelings. We still hurt. We get frustrated just as much. And it can be very tempting to say, the hell with everything and everyone. We can easily look at it as, after all I've done, and this is how they're going to come at me. This is how they're going to treat me. This is what they're going to say about me. I mean, but can we really get mad to a certain extent? Because if you think about it, this has been in our nature since the beginning of time. I mean, look in the Garden of Eden. God told Adam, you can eat of any tree in the garden except for the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Then God said it's not good for man to be alone. He put him to sleep, took a rib out, created Eve, bam. Now, the serpent pops up on the scene. Eve knew the orders from the headquarters. Don't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The serpent, smooth talked her. She disobeyed, ate the fruit or partook in the fruit. She passed it on to her husband. We're not going to get into the particulars of that situation, but just look at the immediate nature that just look at what happened in that instant. God came down and said, Adam, where are you? And he ran and hid. And he said, Adam, why didn't you, come when I called you? He said, I heard your voice and I was afraid, so I hid. And he said, who told you that you were naked? I mean, God already knew this, but God is not a dictator. He's not what TV in the world projects him to be. This is a conversation. This is a dialogue. He's like, look, man, I'm going to give you a chance to own up to what you did. I know what you did, but I want to talk to you about it. Did you eat from the knowledge of the tree of good and evil? And what does he say? It was the woman you gave me. She gave me the fruit. Then God is like, Eve, what's up? And she's like, it was the serpent. He tricked me. Now think about it. Adam had I want to say the word I want to say, but he had the cojones to blame God and to blame Eve. And then Eve had the cojones to blame the serpent. Nobody was taking responsibility for anything they did. Nobody. But thank God for Jesus Christ, because where Adam failed, Jesus prevailed. And today we are no longer slaves to sin, to our desires, to our flesh, to those things that held us captive in those mindsets. We are slaves to righteousness. We are now in right standing with God. So we do have a choice to choose how we are going to respond to situations. Now think of it. What sense would it have made for these band of raiders, these people who had nobody, had no sense of belonging, they had no family to go to, they were criminals, they were the lowest of the low, and David took these people in. Now, he was good when they was eating, when they was prospering, when they was winning battles, but soon as a situation arose, they wanted to kill him. And David could have folded under pressure. He could have ran. He could have blamed them like, yo, yeah, I mean, why didn't y'all go ahead? I'm the leader. Why I got to do everything? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm over here trying to make sure we got a place to stay. Y'all want to blame me for... They took my wife and kid too. Like, how y'all finna kill me? And they took my people too. Like, you think I'm not sad and feeling bad about this? Y'all want to put salt on the wound? Y'all want to add insult to injury? Y'all want to kill me? No, he didn't do that. He said he found strength and he encouraged himself in the Lord, and he sought the Lord and said, Lord, if I go and pursue after these Amalekites, will I recover? Will I have success? And he told him, yes, if you pursue them, you will pursue, you will overtake, and you shall recover all that was taken from you. And so think of it, in times of trouble, some of us turn to God and, for help, while others turn away from him. Now, as a man, as a married man, I'm responsible for my family's spiritual, financial, physical well-being, all of that. And even when things go wrong, there are things that I've had to bear the burden of, even though it wasn't directly my fault. But understand that my kids, my wife, they are representations of me, and I am representations of them. I am a representation of God. I am an ambassador of God. So when they see me, they see a form of God. I have to be able to express the glory of God in my actions and what I do. And so when we step out of the house, no matter what family we belong to, we are representing those people wherever we go. Your name means something. Your reputation means something. And so there was 2 Corinthians 1:8. I believe it was Paul. I'm not sure. Don't stone me if I got it wrong. But it said that they were utterly burdened beyond strength, that they despaired life. And they felt that they received the sentence of death. But it was to make them rely on God and not themselves. See, they were talking about the trials and tribulations they were going through on their way to coming to minister to them. And they said that we don't want y'all to be ignorant of this. We did go through some stuff. We're not just giving you fluff. We're not just holding you to some standard and telling you to do some things we haven't done. Understand, we had to go through some things to get to this place. But the stuff we went through, it was so heavy on us that we felt like dying, like we couldn't go on any further. But they said that this was to make them rely on God and not themselves. And so understand, we can all focus on the people blaming David. We can focus on what David should have done right, which a lot of us do. We always want to pick at what was wrong and what another person could have did better, when we don't even critique ourselves in that manner. It's so crazy how we're the experts on everybody else's situations and their shortcomings and their issues, but can't look in the mirror and hold our own selves accountable. But that's a whole nother podcast. But that utterly caused David to rely on God. And I want to put you individuals who are listening to this onto some game right now. Your situation may be the very thing God has allowed to happen because you've been relying on self for too long. You have pushed God out of the equation, so you didn't get here by yourself. I'm pretty sure somewhere along the way, before you got to where you are right now, it's something you asked God for. You did what you were supposed to do. He came through. He delivered. Now all of a sudden it became about you. And now God has this is a way of saying that I need to wake you up and reel you back in, because you getting too far out there to where I might not be able to pull you back, because you thinking this is all this was done in your own strength, that you somehow did this on your own, and now this is becoming an idol. This is becoming your graven image. This is becoming the object of your affection and your worship, and I can't have that because I'm a jealous God. And so David didn't blame them. David didn't run off and make a stupid decision out of desperation. He didn't buck up and was like, what's up? What y'all want to do? He didn't do any of that. He immediately encouraged himself in the Lord and relied on him. And so understand the Amalekites, there's a long-standing history with the Amalekites. I mean, they attacked Israel. They attacked the children of Israel when they were getting delivered out of Egypt. And these little punks, they attacked them from behind, like the guerrilla warfare style, when they were on their way going through the wilderness. And God was like, yo, Moses, write this on the scroll. I will blot out the very existence of them from generation to generation. Y'all are always going to be at war with them. And in a sense, Amalekites, they can represent the unforeseen circumstances in life. They could represent the problems that were ignored, that came back to bite us in the behind. They could represent the things in our lives that were not protected, that had been stolen or destroyed. And so we have to understand that when situations in life happen, our response is everything. See, me personally, I'm a fighter. I have a taekwondo and a kickboxing background. So all my life I had to fight. And that very well translated over into my relationships. I've stood up. A lot of us come from a past where we've been bullied or we've been taken advantage of, whether it's been by strangers or family members. And so we grow up with the mindset that ain't nobody gonna ever take advantage of me. So we fight. We fight the people that love us. We fight the people that's trying to help us. We just fight. We just don't know how to let our guard down and let Jesus just take it. It's like it's okay to just let your guard down and let him fight your battles. But sometimes we don't know how to do that. We need to be taught how to do that. And so it doesn't do us any good to want to point the finger and blame people when situations in our life happen. Sometimes we just need to step back and say, Lord, okay, are you trying to get my attention? Is there something that I did wrong? Because, yes, again, we can critique David's situation as a leader and say there were things he could have did and parameters and protocols he could have set in place so that wouldn't happen. But that ain't the case. That didn't happen. The situation happened, and he went to the Lord and said, Father, how could I solve this? What could I do? Now, don't get me wrong. Don't sit here and say that I said, pray to the Lord and he's going to fight your battles and you ain't got to do nothing. David had to go. He had to take the men and go after them. Don't get it twisted. A lot of us, we get super religious and say, I'm waiting on the Lord. Waiting on the Lord to do what? That's a bona fide excuse. I'm waiting on the Lord to do what? I'm waiting on the Lord to bless me. Bless you with what? Are you positioning yourself for the blessing? Are you going to be at the place where the blessing is so he can give it to you, so you can receive it? Or are you just waiting for him to come down off his throne and give it to you? David wasn't waiting for God to come down and say, hey, listen here, I know who took your stuff and I know where they at. Go get them. He ain't do none of that. David took it upon himself to seek the Lord, and the Lord responded and said, yes, if you pursue them, you will overtake and you will recover all. And when he did that, he came across one of the slaves that they left behind, and he was like, look, listen, if you treat me right, and you promise you won't kill me, I'll tell you where they're at. And so oftentimes when we respond accordingly to the situation, and we're sober in our minds and we're not emotional, we're able to hear the Lord correctly. You tell me somebody you've ever tried to talk and calm down who was real wild, just talking crazy, saying they're going to do X, Y, Z. Tell me somebody who's ever heard or like, how can two people talk at the same time? Somebody got to listen to the other person. And so understand, prayer is a conversation. So you make the request and then you shut up and listen for the answer. You ask God and you shut up and receive what he's going to say. Don't just, Lord, I want this X, Y, Z, and then go on about your business, which a lot of us do. But it doesn't make no sense. It doesn't make no sense to chop the head off for the leader or chop the head off for your household or tear down the people that you've been following because something went wrong. And now you want to blame them because your livelihood is at stake. That's not right. When in fact, you should be going to the Lord as well and praying and interceding for them. Because you're not the leader. You're not in their position. And you ain't got to take on a burden that they got to take on. So, man, I could go on and on about this. But, I just want, encourage those out there, man. If you're in any kind of position, and you're in the valley, you're going through something, encourage yourself in the Lord and go to the source, because people aren't always going to have the answers. They're not always going to be available. And what's the sense of straining a relationship and getting mad at people who you're expected to do what only God can do? This is Daryl Dixon Jr. That is my time. I love every one of y'all. If y'all like the podcast, subscribe. I am out of here. Until next time. Peace.